already have hydrogen fusion. But what we have with hydrogen fusion is an awkward way of doing it in infrastructure, but it has actually been accomplished by the Livermore laboratories in California. They point 192 lasers at one pellet of hydrogen and release more energy than the world could possibly use with no pollution whatsoever. This has already been done. It was done in 2011. And in my new book, which is called Fast Forward, I quote that article about that, the description of it. And a company in Great Britain is also joining forces with this, and they want to design a usable infrastructure. If we have that kind of fusion, everything is electricity. We don't have to ever use fossil fuel again. We just, all electric everything, all electric cars. We don't need fossil fuel. The other fact is that in Switzerland they have a giant fusion laboratory and accelerator. It was built in the early 1990s, between 1990 and 1992, with the idea that they would have a fusion reaction. Now, for those who don't know what this is, right now all of our nuclear plants are nuclear fission, which creates the energy, but at major toxic costs with radioactivity. Nuclear fusion uses everything up, so there is no toxic pollution. Now, what's going on in our sun is nuclear fusion, to give you an example. But at any rate, in CERN, Switzerland, the Six Nations and the European Union have been behind this giant reactor. And I have said in my newsletters, on my book, and on radio shows that between 2024 and 2026 we will have nuclear fusion, and we will have, under the Neptune, Uranus, Pluto trine sextile in the heavens, all those big planets in great aspect to one another will symbolize the energy revolution. We will have fusion, and it is going to transform everything. There was an article in the June Scientific American by a science writer that reported on the one in CERN, Switzerland, that said
they project... the Hebron or something? Hebron, is that it?
Yes. The Hadron Collider. That's a different one. This is specifically designed to create fusion, and the Hadron Collider, that's really interesting because they recently substantiated the existence of the Higgs boson, or what's known the God particle. And I can go back over that too, but
the God particle, you mean so you can create everything?
Well, this was in the news this past summer, all over the news. And I want to precede it by saying that I predicted in this time the Pluto-Uranus square, with all of the difficulty it produced, the last time it reached an exact square was 1932-33 when we split the atom. The atom was split.
Interesting.
Now, that was huge. That was an enormous breakthrough in physics. Now, this time, it was exact the end of June. On the 4th of July, it was reported that they had done the experiment and found what is known as the God particle. It's not really a particle. It's an environment in which all creation can take place, that atoms and molecules and all the subatomic particles can organize themselves, that existence, matter, and energy as we know it can happen. It was hypothesized back in the 60s under the last Pluto-Uranus conjunction. And Higgs and boson are two different people. Boson, by the way, is an Indian scientist from India. At any rate, you can go online and read the whole background about the Higgs boson. It was hypothesized that it existed, and the reactor, the experiment that was done in CERN, Switzerland, substantiated the existence of it. So that's why they call it the God particle.
So I want to jump into another thing, which is that the the way technology has been and the way communications have been, even though the media is sort of controlled and all that, we have you're talking about the God particle, and I'm saying we have an ability to have a one consciousness in a conscious fashion all around the world right now. Is that sort of the other side? Is that kind of going to lead us to an expansion of consciousness and thought?
I happen to believe that very deeply, that the real solutions to all problems reside within an elevated and expanded and loving consciousness, an intelligence that combines with a heart-centered existence to produce a human being that is extremely advanced in its understanding, its wisdom, its knowledge, its love, and that all the struggles that we're going through right now is nature's attempt to bring us out of our coma, wake us up to see the obvious, that we are one. We are individual manifestations of one conscious energy that is all that is. And that once we wake up to this, the humankind will have expressions and experiences beyond things most people even conceive of. Yes, I absolutely think, but I think the timing of this is we're going to have to go through a lot to get there.
I guess I don't know quite where to go. I'm going, what do we do? Just meditate? What do we do? How do we pitch in, Linda? How do we wake each other up?
Well, that's a very good question, and I don't know that there's a simple answer, one answer. I happen to think that daily meditation, relaxation, getting rid of all the, what you might call the roof brain chatter in the head, and relaxing, and then calmly visualizing a white light and love around your loved ones, the people that you know, and then visualizing the white light around the planet Earth itself. I think that is something that works on a level beneath the frenzy kind of existence that most of us are living today. I think that daily meditation, it helps us, it makes us healthier, it wiser, calmer, and helps us to get in touch with our core self. So I'm a great, that is, all I can say is it works for me. And I think that's why it works for you, and it works for people who testify that it works for them.
So now I'm going to jump back into the steamy bits of what's going on. How does the cartel, I mean, how do you predict that the cartel will break down at times and allow for a democratic global consciousness?
They will not do it voluntarily. I do not believe that any more than monarchs went down. You see, I feel that under that in the past we have seen the end of the age of monarchs, the end of the age of, for most places, dictators, although there are a few left around the world, like the Castros in Cuba. The monarchs are just figureheads today, if they exist at all in nations. The dictators, the communists, exist. There's almost nothing less. Although China still remains a communist dictatorship, but it has admitted capitalism into it.
Sounds like the banks are the dictators right now.
Right now, what we have is American history is still from the robber barons of the late 19th, early 20th century. They are very selfish. They get into positions of power. They believe that they absolutely can do anything they want in order to become very rich and very powerful. And they're extremely narcissistic by temperament. And they don't, if you look at what the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, people back then did to the labor force, to other people, to each other, they have a kind of predator-prey concept, and that the current powerful predators are entitled to their predatorship, and the prey are just lazy losers anyway. And this is capitalism, uncontrolled, unrestrained, allowed to grow into giant corporations that we would call the plutocracy today, named after our favorite planet, Pluto, by the way. Not by astrologers.
No.
But
it's
today, the robber barons have reemerged, and we now have inequality. We have nobody is really addressing the true causes of the diminishment of the workforce, because not only outsourcing to slave labor abroad, that's only a small part of it. The true cause is automation, is the very wonderful technologies that are replacing whole segments of the job force. Robots are replacing factory workers, and computers are replacing adjacent secretarial help, and on and on. The technological revolution is enabling us to do great things, and these kids are graduating college with degrees, and they can't get a job. Mm-hmm. There are only jobs in high-level science and medicine, and the financial world. And usually you're a part of a good old boys network.
Pharmacy.
Yes, that lets you. There is pharmacy. In fact, my grandson is a freshman in college. He's going to go for a pharmacology track and go all the way to get a doctorate of pharmacy, which is a very, very good route to go. But pharmacy, because the pharmaceutical companies are so powerful that part of the reason people are taking all kinds of pharmaceutical products to deaden themselves against the abject fear that they have when they look around at what's going on. And a lot of people want to run away from this. A lot of people are not running away from it, but they just, whatever it is, their nervous systems can't take this, and they break down. There's a variety, a whole spectrum of reasons for this, but I think our society is drugged, and we're doped up by television.
And I think our food supply.
The food supply has been industrialized. It has become a part of the corporate cartel. And the industrialization and corporatization of farming and food has been an absolute disaster for our health.
Mm-hmm. It really has. It's a very interesting time. So in the middle of it, where's the really positive stuff comes up? Like, for example, we've got the robotics and so on and fewer jobs in a certain area. Ideally, that sets people up to be free to really create some new levels of human existence, doesn't it? But instead, we're
It might, but in reality, when you're in a, quote, capitalistic society, a capitalistic plutocracy, you've got to have a job to survive.
Yeah.
And who's going to support you doing that? You've got to have some way of making a living that isn't going back to just being a serf digging for potatoes all day.
But aren't there an awful lot of entrepreneurial things going on as well?
I do see that, and I believe in that. I think small business and entrepreneurialism
and local
is
business.
The way. Mm-hmm. Right, local businesses are definitely the way to go. But we need to rally in our communities. We need to recreate the whole notion of community. We need to grow organically foodstuffs near at hand if we possibly can, whether it's greenhouse gardening or regular farming, to grow food organically close to home. We need to surround ourselves. We need to be less dependent on industrialized farming and big business to sustain us. In order to do that, and we have to encourage, an example of that here, because of electronics, books, paper-made books are going out, down. I won't say totally out of existence, but they're diminishing. But books aren't. Books you can read on Kindle or online. Mm-hmm. So books are becoming electronic. So the big bookstores that sold a lot of books, like Borders, went out of business here where I live in Ithaca. Well, they went out of business everywhere. They went bankrupt.
Right.
And Barnes & Noble is hanging on by their teeth because they're doing a lot of electronic stuff. Now, what happened here where I live was there was a bookstore that was kind of a mom and pop business with a coffee shop in it that was losing the battle against Borders. Guess what? It is now thriving.
Oh, wow.
This small, it has one section which has used books.
Good.
It has another section which has new books. And it has now picked up. People are going, who love books, are going there. And so, and which of course you could get at Borders and Barnes & Noble. They all thought up the idea of having a coffee shop within the store. But everybody in Ithaca really wants, most of us here really want to promote local entrepreneurship. We have, and we do. We're very, very encouraging to that here. We've got, all of us have a long way to go. We have to reframe democracy. See, democracy is easier to do closer at hand when it's small. When it gets too big, it's subject to being bought out by the rich and the powerful, which is going on now.
But actually, there are communities developing around the country, aren't there? Because I keep seeing that there are seniors communities, and heard a thing on NPR about a neighborhood that turned itself into a seniors community to support one another. And have you heard of, I mean, that's what you're in. You're not in a seniors community, but you're in a community.
No,
right?
I'm not. I'm happier not to be, frankly. It's a personal decision in a senior community, although I'm well into my senior years. Because I want to have young people around me. I want to see their youth, and I want to hear their ideas and their problems and their new concepts, and that excites me. I am not, it depends on how the seniors are set up, but I think they need to be very integrated with the rest of the community. You may, for instance, you may have senior housing, which is very user-friendly, having everything on one floor and having things set up so you can age comfortably in your home and all of this. But I believe in my life, I want to be integrated in this country and in the world. I want to be a part of the lives of the young people, people my age as well, whom I have as dear friends.
But,
so
you know, I wasn't saying it has to be just seniors communities. I just think that there is the development of communities going on quietly around the country.
Yes, there are. And I feel that there are local decisions being made along the lines that we're talking about. You see, a lot is happening, but it's not being reported on by the media, and you can get information frequently online about these things. So we have to reinvent the city and reinvent the community, and there is a book called America Beyond Capitalism by an economist from the University of Maryland, Gar Alperovitz. Strange-sounding name, but he has really figured this out, how we can relocalize successfully and with prosperity.
Wow, that sounds like a good book to have.
The people here are so friendly toward one another. I've never been in a place this warm and friendly. Just, you could talk to somebody on the street, and he might be the chairman of the computer department or math department at Cornell, way high up, and he'll talk to you like you're his second cousin.
Aww.
Just the people around here are like this, and they're involved in the community. We elected last year, just a year ago, September, we elected the youngest mayor in American history.
Wow.
His name is Savante Myrick, and he has an interesting story. Briefly, he was his mother and his sisters and brothers lived out of their car for a number of years. They were so poor, abandoned by the father, and the mother worked 3 jobs just to get them into an apartment, and they struggled along. He's of mixed racial background, and he struggled, but he was very, very smart. He got into Cornell, and he succeeded and graduated at the top of his class, and was so liked and appreciated, they asked him to take the job as head of the Alumni Association, which at Cornell is a very big post. And then he got involved in Ithaca, settling here on the town board. And last year, he ran against 3 other candidates and won by 57% of the vote. And last year, when he won that election, he was 24 years old.
Oh my gosh, what a guy. What you're telling us is that there are some bright lights popping up in the middle of this incredibly, what would we say, egregious power experience that we're all.
Well, it is, and we have to look also. The Middle East is blowing up. It's just blowing up. I mean, most of the nations are either having revolutions that have overthrown their governments or in the process of doing it. Where we have concentrated, where oil, the center of oil culture has been in the Middle East, and there, it's like we come in December 21st this year to the end of the Mayan long count, just under 5,200-year cycle. And when our civilizations began 5,200 years ago, the ancient Mesopotamian civilizations, Egypt, Babylonia, and now, guess what? Those same regions, those same areas are ending. They're coming to an end.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
Where the origin. And there is something about all of that that is very meaningful at this time to all of us,
wow.
That it is time for this great consciousness change and breakthrough. And each one of us in our lives can make that commitment personally and make that commitment to our communities and to our country and be a part of whatever each one of you out there does well. And if you're a part of doing something that you love very well, you're going to be a part, an important piece of this gigantic puzzle that I think will be assembled and come together in the next decade.
And if it's 5,200 years in cycles, 2020 is not a very long period of time from now, is it?
It is
to
not.
Make changes.
It is not. And
Linda,
we're on the verge. I mean, we're getting there.
Yay! What's Next is a very good book for people to get hold of if you want to get kind of a, what is it, the survival...
A survival guide to the 21st century. And my next book is called Fast Forward. And it hopefully will be published in December of this year before the big Mayan long count ends on December 21st.
Before the end of the world, yeah.
Yes. I don't think, as I've said, we're not getting off that easily.
Yeah.
My online newsletter, which goes up the first of every month on my website, is soothesayer, SOOTHESAYER.com.
Wonderful.
And you can buy my book on either off of that website, or you can buy it on Amazon.com, or you could order it at bookstores. But my second book is not out yet. You can buy my first book, but my second book will be out shortly.
Well, your first book is a terrific reference for what's been going on and what is going to go on for a while. You have some great, we didn't talk about this, but you have some great futuristic descriptions in your What Next book. It's wonderful.